right now have our next panel. We stick with the topic of sustainability. We will talk about conserving resources, how we do that, how smart production and how green materials come in. And for that, it's a pleasure to introduce my next two speakers. I can already see them over there. So it's Ulrike Böttcher. She's the CEO and co-founder of valupa, and it's Bernhard Fauser. He's the managing director, Central Europe Market at HP Germany. Thanks for joining me on stage. Yeah. Thank you very much for taking your time, for joining us today. I don't know if you backstage got bits and pieces of the conversation we just had. We were talking in a more broader sense about digitization and sustainability, and what I want to do with the two of you now is to do a bit of a deep dive to see how smart production comes in, how green materials come in, what 3D printing is all about, and how this can help. But before we dive into the questions, again, for you, it would be great for our audience to get to know you. So I'd like to start with you. Please give us a 2 to 3 minute pitch of who are you, what do you do, and what's your viewpoint when it comes to conserving resources?
Lady first.
Yes.
All right, Ulrike. So I start. Hello, I'm Ulrike, CEO and co-founder from valupa, and we develop sustainable trimmings for the fashion industry. And the fashion industry is still the second biggest environmental problem of our times, and next to a high CO2 emission, also the waste of resources is still a big problem. And 70% of our clothes are still made out of fossil resources, which are harmful for environment. And this is where valupa starts, because we produce haberdasheries for the fashion industry, which we make sustainable. So everything what is attached to your clothes, we produce from 100% renewable resources, and therefore we also use waste from the industry to use less resources. And so what we look at is that we actually produce locally, we look at the design, and we look at the material itself. And from the design perspective, we can make the product much more circular. So actually the textile which you wear in the end is much more easy to take apart in the end of life. And then we look at the material, which also should be more sustainable. And there we develop a new material. And in fact, we use 3D printing, and we combine it with our material. And therefore we can listen more carefully to our customers and act actually on what they like to have in their collections.
Thank you very much. Before we dive into what you do and how where your ideas came from and how you founded your company, maybe Bernhard, give us an introduction of yourself.
More than welcome. My name is Bernhard Fauser. I'm one of the 9 market leaders at HP worldwide. I'm leading the Central Europe market. I have 25 years of history, and I think I don't need to explain who is HP. HP is a company goes back to one of the startups of the Palo Alto area, the Silicon Valley. Bill and Dave is well known for the garage they founded there. And we are still there because our company is reinventing them constantly. And therefore, one of the things we reinvented is the way we're using our IPs and doing 3D printing today. And this is what we are talking about. And for sure, we are on a sustainable footprint as well, because we are doing that one since the 60s. So it's not a kind of a greenwashing, because it's now a marketing thing. It is really something which is deep to our DNA and to our heart.
So maybe, as you just mentioned, that you have 25 plus years of experience, I guess you've seen a lot, and you've seen a lot of changes in the industry.
Absolutely.
Which is really valuable, I guess, for a panel like this. So maybe what from your experience of all these years, what was the biggest driver of change? What was the biggest driver to be more sustainable as a company, to be sustainable in your products?
As I mentioned, this is not something which is new to HP. So this is based also on the founders, Bill and Dave. They already recycled in the 60s something which is not used anymore. It's the kind of, I don't know the English word for it, the kind of paper-based cards with the dots in, with the holes in. You used at that time when you don't have magnetic tapes. And this is where they're starting with having a recycling economy, and also the way we're giving a part of our profit we are making back to the society, so we're doing good in digital equity. So for us is a kind of sustainable footprint, not going into zero-based manufacturing. For sure we're doing that one as well. but also in the way we are dealing with our supplier from an aesthetical and from a human being point of view, and also what we are giving back to the communities in the way we are founding digital equity for regions where are not able, that they can get up to the knowledge level and skill level we are having in the developed areas.
Yeah, thanks a lot for sharing that with us. Coming back to you, talking about how sustainability is also can also be a business opportunity. So maybe walk us through your path. What was the impetus for you to become active? What was your way into becoming a founder and doing what you do now?
Well, I think it's actually coming from the heart. So it always has been a theme to me. And I'm originally a textile and surface designer, and from the very beginning I was always into sustainable fashion. And I was always kind of looking for the opportunity for me to take part in this direction. And then at one point I figured out what it could be, so now I'm with haberdasheries. And but it's a lot more than that, because every single part in the fashion industry counts. And as I said, I'm from the textile department, and there we also look deeper into the material itself. And because of that, we started to develop our own material as well, which I think is a big part in the fashion industry, because it needs new resources and sustainable resources, and that is what we have to look for.
Yeah, so the two of you touched the point of 3D printing. I see you have something in your hands, which I'm curious, and because we're curious to get to know what this is all about. So climate protection really is becoming more about innovation technology, such as 3D printing. So this technology was used, especially during the pandemic in particular. So maybe as you have something with you, what do we actually talk about when we talk about 3D printing?
I mean, for me, 3D printing is two things. Before I get into the IT industry, I was a mechanic, so I was used to develop things in the classical way and producing things. And then I saw these things, and I was really exciting, because first of all, from a sustainable point of view, this kind of parts using only the material which is needed. So in the classical way, you're going to do something in the way you're putting stuff away to get to the product. Here you're adding, and this is something which we call additive manufacturing. And the other thing is, you can produce things which you can't do in a classical way, which opens completely new area. So you're disrupting business. So Ulrike talked about sustainability in the way she's using 3D printing. The way we're using 3D printing is having individualizations, having really looking on bringing production back into countries like Germany. You have less logistic cost. You're having opportunities to produce things in a completely new way, like you can embed some function into the product. And this is now something which is not a use case, but it shows that something like this is coming that way out of a printer. You don't have to touch this anymore. You don't have to put the parts together. All the moving parts are already printed. And this is the exciting part for us.
So you were talking about the logistics, maybe coming back to you talking about the supply chain. So what potential do you see in this technology when it comes to having more environmentally friendly and more sustainable supply chains?
So actually, one point Bernhard already mentioned, it's actually you can bring back the production to local areas. And for us, this is very important, because now we can actually see how we can start with our product as a startup, that we have a starting point where you say, okay, the product could look like this way, and then we go to the customer, we get feedback, we change the product, so we customize as well. And then in the end, we decide, okay, which product can go in bigger production scales. So we do a combination of 3D printing and injection molding, actually, so we also can scale in the end. And I think there are many opportunities for local productions right now.
But I would like to add on Ulrike's speech. I mean, it's not only the logistics bringing in also workplaces into our country. It is also about longer life cycle, because you can print spare parts, you don't have to store them anymore. And also, I think the biggest challenge at the moment for that one is you need to have other skills. And we talked today a lot about talents, because the way designing those parts is a little bit different than we did it in the past. So you need other skills, and it's on the forefront of the digitalization of the manufacturing process as well. So having that one with other technologies, it brings the industry 4.0 into another dimension, and therefore I believe strongly that this is a game changer of 3D printing, and we are still at a tipping point or in the starting point of this one.
Yeah, I also would like to add that like digitalization for fashion industry is also very important to become more sustainable. So this is also a first step we can do.
Yeah, I guess I read that on your website, is that the fashion industry is the second biggest problem for nature today, and that really was kind of an eye-opener for me, because when you think about sustainable business models, sustainable industries, you don't necessarily think about the fashion industry. So I guess your example and your case studies is a really interesting one, just trying to see the different niches where really 3D printing as an example, as a case study technology, can come in. But I guess when it comes to the Hub Berlin, the things are always sometimes too good to be true. This seems to be a huge opportunity. So maybe from you, as someone who just started their business, what are the main challenges, the main obstacles you see in your day-to-day work, whether it comes to talent, whether it comes to technical questions and solutions?
So you mean in general, or you mean when it comes to 3D printing?
Both, really both, from the business side, but also from the 3D printing side.
Because, so I mean, from the business side, obviously the sustainable area is still a growing area, so we sometimes have to struggle, for example, with finding the right investors, or with finding the right opportunity, how to enter the market. And but it's a big theme and it's growing, and so we are really fighting for it to become bigger. And I think from the perspective of 3D printing, it's time. To us, it's time. Because, I mean, in my vision, actually, I would love to one day produce everything with 3D printing, because you can save materials, you can use new materials, actually. I mean, we use FDM printing right now, and we experiment a lot with new materials, which is really nice for us, that we can do it right away in the office. It's not, we don't need a big space, it's right there. But the time issue is still there. So 3D printing is not that fast yet for us in the small production, that we can say, oh, we can scale up, we can produce everything with it. So we still have to do the combination of 3D printing, injection molding from our side, but we really hope that we work towards it, that one day we can produce everything with 3D printing from our side.
Yeah, maybe Bernhard, you can add on that from a big company's perspective.
Absolutely. There's, from this point of view, the way 3D printing is being compared usually in saying, okay, I can produce that one in a mass production much more efficiently. However, this is not a use case for 3D printing. It's really going what we call the segment of one, the individualization of parts. You can really build the one part which fits to you. Just think about orthodontics or other things, insole into shoes, which are really your Kim insole. It's not mine, it's yours, which definitely looks different. And so therefore, this is a use case for 3D printing. And having that one from another way, thinking about how you can disrupt something like this, it's really on a tipping point. But on the other side, what we are really need is also a kind of a visibility for this technology in the government, because most of the startups here are asking me, how can I finance that one? So the version, our printers are a 6-digit investment. So this is not just going for 100 or 400 bucks home-based printer, it's an industrial printer. So you need to think about how you're supporting them by financing and startup solutions for building their business model. This is something I wish. And the other part is what about talents I mentioned. So also the way we are teaching our students at a school has to change and take this one in recognition in the way we are designing parts and making parts, not only in the textile areas for new business models, but also in the industrial or in the health area.
Yeah, so you built the perfect bridge, because for the last 5 minutes of this panel, I want to talk about kind of the policy side of it all, and what's needed from government, what's needed from the regulatory perspective to make this a real game changer, not only for some companies, but really for the industry, for Germany as an industry. place. So if you have 3 wishes when it comes to politics, because 3D printing wasn't at all mentioned in the coalition agreement, so what really needs to be done to further promote this idea?
I mentioned it. First of all, we need to have a change in the education system on digital technologies. And that not only goes to the way I mentioned at that one for the 3D printing, it's also about what we see here a lot is artificial intelligence, big data, all those buzzwords. And for me, it is not only bringing the things together from a background, but also into use cases. And that's what I'm looking as an industry for, having talents who can combine this kind of things and having the business view as well, because this is still separately. The second thing is, for sure we need to have an eye on the investment cases. So how we support startup, small, medium enterprises in the way they can afford this business, and making the step into that one, enable them to go into this one. And the third one is for sure, I think the sustainability is a buzzword at the moment. We hear that all over the place. I think it is also on our side to have a real kind of guardrail what means sustainability. Just starting from our carbon neutrality, but it goes also into what I mentioned, how we treat with human rights and other things, and how we giving back good things to the community. And those 3 pillars I really appreciate if we can have a closer look on those 3 things.
Yeah, Ulrike, I saw you were nodding a lot, you were smiling a lot, so I guess there's a lot to agree. And so maybe for the last minutes, your perspective on what needs to change or what needs to be addressed within governmental agencies, but also maybe from your unique perspective as a startup founder who's just kind of new to the business and new to this side of the game. What do you wish for? What do you hope for in the future?
Yeah, I mean, I just add some things because you already said a lot of things. I also, that why I'm nodding, it's true. I think from my perspective, especially from the textile industry, I think the look at the supply chain has to be a lot deeper, and we have to know where comes what from. And in that case, it's very good, you know, if we can produce right here, if we know what materials we're using, what is in the material, and to be very transparent about what we do. And I think in these cases, obviously, also government could help to make things more transparent and give it rules, you know, strict rules. So it's not that easy to go into greenwashing. I think, that is very important to us. And obviously also the finance, you know, a startup like us, obviously we also need support. And that is always something government should actually look at a little bit deeper. So.
Yeah, so I guess we have a lot to do now, we as a society in general, but also the government. So maybe if people are now getting curious about 3D printing, if they haven't heard anything about this before, or if they never had things like this in their own hands, where to start? What was your starting point really? How to motivate people, how to make them be part of the game-changing movement?
I mean, I can really invite you to stop by at our small booth, because we have a lot of examples like this, and you're going to be fascinated. Unfortunately, I don't have a printer here, because it takes a special environment. It's not possible to print in with our printers here in this room. But that's showing the power of that one, and going into different verticals, which I mentioned. And so you can even be going beyond your imagination, what can be possible. And you make some stuff of your things, like you say, the buckles and some of the other things in an individualized 3D printing. But I think it goes much further beyond, and we are just at the starting point, having other materials. So the next step is coming on our side, printing in metal. So that lifts that one to another one. But really looking on that one from different angles. Also, we using a recycled powder, and also a kind of a green powder, if you want to, which is not on mineral oil based. So also here, the sustainable footprint is very high. Yeah.
Maybe your last words to add on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think many things we already mentioned, and I also think there are so many points about it which makes it easier for startups with 3D printing to enter the market, to go to the customer very early, to get feedback on what we do. And I think those are first steps which make it a lot easier for startups to grow and to start and to figure out, do we really have the right products, and don't we just produce the next big garbage out there which we don't need. So.
Yeah, so our time is out, but thanks a lot. We have 30 seconds left. I do a quick outro for that.
But keep going.
It was really great having you on stage.
Thank
and
you,
I guess
Kim.
this was really also after the first panel, which was a bit more broader perspective and sustainability, really talking about concrete use cases, talking about the technology that's behind it. Say hi at HP, and finally touch your first 3D printed object. It was great having you here. Thank you very much for sharing your insights. A round of applause for Ulrike and Bernhard.
Thank you.
Thank you.